working on the budget, working through the budget in public since, gosh, October. And so we're at a point where we pretty much have a budget that we will work to present in April for board adoption and for public vote in May. So these are all the slides that you're used to, and these will all sort of appear in the public hearing. Just as a reminder, we talk about expenditures, and those expenditures have not changed on the slide. The administrative, the capital, and program components, we're looking at a 3% increase budget to budget, year to year still. That hasn't changed since last month. Oh, that was fancy. Expenditures, did I do something weird? You're okay up there? Yeah. Okay, very good. Sure why it's so fancy. This is kind of where I wanted to just spend a little time. So scenario A, if you look up to the left there, it's pretty much what we've presented so far. We said with not knowing exactly what we're going to get in state aid, this is kind of where we are still. We're looking at roughly a change for the better in state aid of almost $650,000. And that is with appropriating our fund balance at just over $400,000. Now that hasn't changed. Again, this slide is as it was last month and the month before, and that's where we hope to be. That increase is with foundation aid at home, hold harmless, and I'll explain that in a second, plus 2%. Now, that scenario A, if we break it down further, we just look at foundation aid, that's the wild card right now. Foundation aid at 2% and safe harmless, we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $345,000 in addition, if all were to go well. What I want to present to you is a scenario B. Right now, the legislators are talking about supporting this idea of safe harmless, where we're not going backwards in terms of funding, but just holding us harmless based on the student enrollment we had in the early 2000s. Okay, and that if we can hold on to safe harmless, and we don't get an increase on top of that, we're looking at state aid increasing only about $300,000. Now, that means that we would have to appropriate more in the fund balance, which is why I circled that in oval and red. That means that we will need to take from the fund balance. I don't really see anything in this budget right now where we could cut to make up for that, at least at this point in the game. As you know, the federal funds have already been dealt with. We have, I think, scoured the budget for any extra cushion, sometimes you hear it called, any extra built-ins in case of emergencies, staffing, that sort of thing. Our estimates are always very conservative, but I think we would have to take more from the fund balance to make up for what we don't get in state aid if we in fact get there. So this scenario gives us that safe harmless amount, but does not account for a 2% increase in foundation aid. And the way that looks, if we just go to the next slide within scenario 2, is foundation aid is a 0% increase. So I wondered if you had any questions on it. We just have to start thinking in scenarios. What will we do if we don't get the state aid that we hope we get? You might say that, well, if you don't get that aid to the tune of $350,000, you just cut more staff or look elsewhere in the budget. I think you're looking at 3 staff members if it comes to that, 3 teachers at that. And I just don't think we have the room in the budget to make those kind of cuts.
But we've talked about having seemingly adequate fund balance available to us to increase the contribution from the fund balance, correct?
That's the truth, yeah.
We just don't want to spend it all in one shot. The idea is to land that to a lower plateau over time, not all in one shot.
And if I'm being transparent, you know, for a couple of months now, I've been talking about, and I know I've talked to a couple of key folks, the JTA, and certainly our cabinet principals. When the federal funds dried up, it's not like we're going to be able to hold on to everything we had. So something's got to change. We managed to hold on to the majority of the good things that we had started, and that's some sort of miracle. But I don't see that we can, you know, not fund anything else. I think some of the programs we started with federal funds, we need to continue, at least for another year, see how they're panning out. And most of that came in keeping the SEAL team folks. We created some other opportunities too for the district in our SRO, for example. You know, so I just don't see any room for, I don't see any room for not funding many more than we've accounted for in this budget, that's all. That's why we take from the fund balance. We don't want to make a habit of that. We're already taking a significant amount from the fund balance. We just cannot fall into that trap. I think that's where the district went. I think there may come a time where we need to talk to the taxpayers about additional tax levy. And, you know, things change. Year to year, it's amazing what things change. In other words, when we have retirements, there are savings there. Just the district needs from year to year, we have to take a really close look at. We just can't roll over budgets anymore. We have to take a look at almost a zero-based budget process.
I guess I would just add, I mentioned here along is when we see the last couple of years, especially when you look at the three components of the budget, and you see those minimal increases per year that are consistent, at least over the last 3 years, you're not seeing huge increases year to year in each one of those components. That's as a result of the work that we do to truly analyze our needs, our costs, and then try to do the best projection we can. That's a reasonable projection that doesn't sometime in the future put us in a bad position because we were off the mark. So we generally try to pinpoint it as close. So after we do our additional work with the federal funds, and as an example this year, there's not a whole lot left after that to go back to the table and take a look at before those cuts start to damage other things that we're doing. So.
Right, that's a credit to your long-term plan.
Yeah, I think we need to keep looking at that long-range plan. So that's kind of the scenarios I wanted to present to you. I certainly don't want to present or propose a budget that cuts any further. Or, you know, it's not that we've cut anything, it's just that we're not able to fund things that were once covered by federal funds. I think these slides should be familiar to you. I break down state aid, but this is really for public explanation. We talk about the complete budget and the 3 different components, broken down by administrative, no changes here. Capital, the only addition in capital is going to be the description about the capital outlay project that we're proposing as part of this budget. And that you can read for yourself down toward the bottom where it says 2024 to 2025 COP capital outlay project is proposed. These are improvements and repairs to the Knox Foundation. I don't mean the money foundation, I mean the actual foundation of the building. And the window well renovations and grout injections to prevent water infiltration. So that's what we would be presenting in our brochure information to the public when we start talking about the capital outlay budget. Anything you want to add, Mr. Wood? Does that sound?
Yes.
Sound right? Okay. And finally, the program component, which we know is the majority of our budget. No changes here from last month. I do explain in these following slides. I haven't spent a lot of time on these, but again, this is really primarily for the public hearing. We get the opportunity to talk about some of these details through our facilities meetings, through our audit, budget, and finance committee meetings, sometimes through our personnel meetings. We know we're sustaining the universal pre-K program. We know the comprehensive instructional program needs to continue being supported. We know long-range financial planning is of utmost importance. Literacy, science of reading, the idea of a guaranteed and viable curriculum, that second paragraph down on the left. I just want to restate that because I certainly restated it today in an instructional cabinet meeting. The idea of a guaranteed and viable curriculum is that our curriculum is for all students, and this is the second full year of full implementation of that idea. This is research-based. We offer that research-based curriculum for our students. We use CKLA reading program, UPK through 5, amplified program, and we continue, if we're going to continue to improve student achievement, then the guaranteed Bible curriculum remains probably the most important cornerstone of the work we're doing. We have to know what we're teaching, and we have to be able to support it through the master schedule and funding if we expect to see results. And you're not always going to see linear results from year to year. You're not going to see 5% increase. That's not the way the world works. It's not the way your weight works. It's not the way your food budget works. You know, there are all kinds of variables. But if we don't settle in on a guaranteed curriculum and make it possible, then we're just never going to make the improvements that we need to. There are a bunch of other factors around that. The SEAL team, the social, emotional, academic learning, I have already demonstrated, I think, my passion for that, especially coming out of COVID, especially dealing with the trauma that we're dealing with right now. It may look different in the future, but right now we have really good supports in place for our students. And we sure want to look at the graduation rate and keep improving on that. We don't have official numbers from last year yet, but we're right around that 93% graduation rate again. Instead of 100% special ed graduation, we're looking at 95%. Back in 2023, that's still a very good rate. We want 100% for everything, but keep that going. And certainly want to look, we want to look back at how reopening and reconfiguration went. And I think we're doing that. We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot, especially based on contractual requirements, safety requirements, how curriculum instruction plays out in these new configurations. We're still grappling with it. It's not perfect by any means, but we know the master schedule is very, very important. And we're also looking at facilities needs, which I know the facilities committee knows. We want to hold on to our curricular and extracurricular programs through this budget. There are no decreases in support for those programs. Transportation, we all know the story there, right? Next year will be the first year of going to full contracted private services. And that'll be something we want to measure too, but that is supported through this budget as well. I just skipped on. Oh, and just a reminder, I don't need to dwell on this, but we do have a medium project, capital project, and an energy performance contract project in the works right now. I'll talk a little bit more about those. But all of that is kind of figured into this budget in terms of the debt schedule. The resolutions that we're looking forward to in May is to establish a capital reserve for a new large capital project. We're looking in the neighborhood of $35 to $40 million of facilities improvements, and that plays nicely into our debt schedule in our long-range plan. So planning this new project hasn't really begun yet, except that our building condition survey for 2025 has kind of already started in terms of getting people in the right places where they need to go to do that. Also impending for this budget vote is asking the voters to expend the capital reserve we established last year for a new small capital 2 project. And facilities committee, audit, budget, and finance, and the board should have a fair handle on what that project includes. The small 2 capital project is fully funded by cash reserves. It is not going to ask taxpayers for more money, but it attends to a few things that we really need to look at. One of them is completion of that Knox fence, that wrought iron fence. Another thing is taking a look at the high school bathroom configurations, citing privacy in those bathrooms and upgrades there. And let's see what else. Bathrooms, kitchens at the elementary schools. We're looking at updating the kitchens to the tune of about $1.2 million at both Warren Street and Pleasant Avenue. And that really sums up most of it, I think. I think that's kind of where we are right now. Are there any questions the board might have? Tried to update you on the capital projects a little bit. The contingency is already in place, so we kind of have an understanding. I will make recommendations, I think, if the budget happens not to pass, but I think we have a plan for that as well. But we have to think differently about the contingency budget. You know, last time I said, if the budget doesn't pass for some reason, we'll probably just go back out with the same amount. We may not be able to. We may have to go back to the drawing board to find a little bit more money. But given the foundation, it pans out.
So I have a question about the Board of Trust, or the Board of Education seats that are up. Have we had any, aside from Jim Spottable's petition, any other petitions picked up?
Nobody's picked up any or asked for any. Mr. Sherman, Mr. Spottle, each one tonight. Whether they wanted them or not.
Okay.
Mr. Beck has stated that he's probably not.
Okay.
I know Rachel's thinking about it.
Okay. What's the deadline to pick them up?
I believe that filing deadline is May 1st.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Now what do I do with this computer? Just sit here? I don't want that now.
Okay, we'll jump into the regular portion of our meeting. We have public comments from the public on agenda and non-agenda items. Board of Education welcomes district residents, parents, students, and other people to our meeting. Community involvement at board meetings is encouraged so that we can better understand your views. Please be aware that individual student information or particular personnel issues will not be discussed by this board during public session. When recognized by the board president, please state your name and address. Statements are restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. Speakers will be notified by the board president when their time has expired. When speaking, the public shall direct their comments to the board and not district staff or other audience members. Speakers shall not expect board members to answer questions during public comment. Questions shall be referred to the superintendent or his designee for review, study, and response. If appropriate, the board may request the issue be a discussion item at a future Board of Education meeting or Board of Education committee meeting. Is there anybody present who wishes to address the board at this time? Yes. Would you like to come forward to speak? Don't be shy, you know.
Good evening. I'm Rachel Loria. This is my son Anthony. We are at 519 State Highway 334 in Johnstown. And we came and we brought some friends to represent the Johnstown Youth Lacrosse Program. And as it relates to one of your agenda items tonight and talking about the potential merger between Fonda and Johnstown programs for lacrosse. And so Anthony has something he'd like to say about it. Yeah, but did you want to say, do you think they should vote for it?
Yeah,
All right, tell them that.
I think you should vote for it.
Yeah, why? Why?
So have fun.
Yeah, some of your best friends are from Fonda and they play lacrosse with you. And those are some of the folks who came with it tonight.
Can you guys stand up in the back so we can see?
Yeah. So we've got the Carpenter family who are from Fonda, and both Leighton and Lucas are both they're 5th and 6th graders, and they've been playing lacrosse in a youth program for 3 or 4 years now, and Bill Bergeau from Johnstown.
Is the youth program already combined with Fonda and Johnstown?
Yeah, the youth program is open to really any districts. My family just moved to Johnstown last year, but had been playing in the youth program prior to that for a couple of years. Currently we have the majority is the majority is Johnstown students. The next largest group is Fonda students. And in the past year, knowing that this was, hopefully going to be coming forward, we tried to do some work around recruiting more Fonda students, and we've seen about a 50% increase in the number of Fonda students who participated last year, as to almost doubling that for this year, which is really exciting for us. And we have, when we were talking about during recruitment efforts and things like that, we focused a lot on getting Johnstown kids involved. So we were at every open house, thank you principals, and we had not been able to do that yet with Fonda. So I think knowing that we'll be doing more recruitment with students in Fonda, we'll get them into the youth program, and we know that that builds up to the varsity and modified programs.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Anthony. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Crankshaw, you got a report this evening?
Yes, I'm happy to say that the district once again has earned the Titanium Safety Award, which is the highest safety award that Utica National, I'm sure, gives. And Alicia and, Alicia, David, and I'll venture to Syracuse to accept that award this month, as a matter of fact. So I just want to give credit to Mr. Wood and who also helped with the information, and the application is pretty extensive. And this is a good reflection of teamwork between Mr. Wood and Mrs. Coster's leadership as well. I wanted to show you a few results from the resource officer survey that we did earlier this month. Pretty quick turnaround, but let me see if I can share this with you. Of course, the SRO is in the budget right now, and we kind of wanted to get a handle on how the community felt, students, staff, parents, community members. So this is kind of just raw data right now. On a Likert scale of 1 to 10, basically, we asked people to respond to questions. The only questions I have in this survey right now, this presentation, involve the first set of questions. The next set of questions is really more for educational purposes. We need to reflect and see what kind of education we need to do with the public, but I'm going to share those with you too. So, see if I can share those with you. I think you have access to it also in here. So, this sample size was 562 people. 338 of them were students, 69 staff members. About twice as much of that was responses from families, which I was encouraged by. We had some community members as well. It's probably the highest number I ever saw from the, just community replying to anything. So participants didn't answer all the questions. Some skipped, but not many. That wasn't a high incident rate. Data shows that on average, they're in favor of school resource officer being in our schools. Typically 8 or 9 out of 10 is what these questions scored. 9 questions aren't represented, but I'll cover those a little bit later. And we're certainly going to use this survey and the results in our safety plan. We'll discuss this at the safety team level. And there are a number of other opportunities to make a survey like this useful. And one of them is a workplace violence plan, which we're now required to put together. So question 1, I feel the presence of an SRO makes it a safer place to work and learn. You can see how that kind of rated. Families and community just point higher on average than students and staff. I feel the students are treated fairly and equally with the SRO. Students had something to say about that. I actually have a couple of responses that I can share with you maybe at another time, I don't know, but the reasons why maybe they didn't give it a full 10. You know, I think they're important reasons to consider. I feel the presence of an SRO helps create a welcoming environment. Also rated pretty high. Now these are average ratings, so 8 and then 9s. I feel that having an SRO is an important part of the school's security safety plan. Again, I know these look redundant, but I swear that these are the results. We just didn't copy and paste. Do you know the name of the SRO? Almost 30% of our students don't know the name of their SRO. Staff, 99% of them do. Parents echo kind of the kids, a little bit more of our families don't know, but I was impressed by 65% of our families knowing the name of the SRO. It's very impressive. And the community, I'm not sure who these folks are, the 40 people, but if 66% of them know the name of the SRO, they must have an interest in completing the survey. That's my guess. I'm comfortable with the SRO wearing the Johnstown Police Department issued uniform. I'm comfortable with the SRO's uniform, including a JPE issued handgun. How comfortable are you approaching the SRO to report an incident or problem? These are all 8s and 9s, okay. Except for the handgun, that was 9s and 10s. Most 10s. Question 9. Do you have first-hand knowledge of a situation where the SRO treated a student inappropriately or unfairly? Majority of folks said no. But I have answers, actually. We have, I can go back, we have 11 responses between all of those no's. So we can look a little bit more. 3 people who were not students answered the question by saying, I don't feel that this is an appropriate question in the first place. I'm not sure I would ask this on the survey because I wouldn't necessarily answer that question fairly if it were the superintendent or if it were my child's teacher. How would we rate? How would I rate as a superintendent if I got asked that question? I don't know, could be 50-50, who knows? But if a teacher were asked, if we asked that question about a classroom teacher or a principal, you know, I think that's a pretty high grade of those who responded to the SRO. The questions that we had remaining in the survey, they had, the question responses had a choice between the SRO, the police department, administration, and school personnel. Who should be the primary responder for a controlled substance? In almost every situation they answered SRO. I can't agree with that because there are certain situations where we don't want the SRO answering to these situations. Who should be the primary responder to a disgruntled parent or guardian on school grounds? Who should be the primary responder for a student dress code violation? I think admin and school personnel were equal there. I think people do get that. Who should be the primary responder for a medical emergency? Should not be the police. Should be our school nurse. Should be administration. Who should be the primary responder for possible possession of a weapon? Are we talking a 3-inch knife? Are we talking a 1-inch knife? Are we talking an assault rifle? I think the question needs a little bit of discussion. Who should be the primary responder for property theft? For security at after-school events, sporting events, students fighting on school grounds during the school day, and trespassers on campus inside the school. So I think we're going to take the answers back, discuss how we need to educate a little bit more. These, I think, will be most often the topic of our safety meetings. Because I'm a little concerned that everybody thinks the SRO is the one that's got to answer to all these scenarios. In this case at all. And they're high too. I'm not talking about low marks. But leads by a lot. Yes,
Dr. Crankshaw, who developed these questions in the entirety of the questionnaire itself?
Good question. So I have a resource that I used from the Wake County schools in North Carolina. I know that's a huge county, and it's a pretty, they just run the gamut of all sorts of families and kids and scenarios, racial, you name it, they've got it in Wake County. So I started there, and I thought that was a good basis. I then passed it to the police department. I think I wanted that collaboration for sure. Do we think these questions work? We utilize the BOCES service that we have to put the survey together, and I asked them for suggestions because they have a lot of experience with surveys. So based on that, that's how I kind of came up with questions. What follows the survey is, for me, a kind of a comprehensive review of it, of the survey results. This is just a snapshot. Any thoughts, ideas? If you're really interested in the topic and you want to go on to Wake County School District in North Carolina, I just think that they're on the forefront of having an SRO program. And I think if you were to go to that site, look at their document, which is a review of their SRO program, I think it's super comprehensive and something I'd like to try to emulate on some scale. Administration, do you have any thoughts, comments?
I could just ask
Yeah.
one. I know that was a hot topic of how if she treated anybody unfairly as far as the SRO, and people thought that was directly against the SRO. That was one that I was more looking for. I wanted to see how the children were responding as far as what their opinions of that, of us being in the school is. And unlike teachers and staff and everything else, I realized a lot of union issues and everything else, our doors are off. We don't have any talks behind closed doors. In law enforcement today, everything is out in the open. It's either on a body cam, it's either on a complaint form or phone call or whatever. So that was more, when we had first talked about it and gone over the questions, that was one of the more that I was looking at, because generally our office today, if somebody handles a call for a domestic or any other type of incident, the sergeant at some point, he'll pick what calls he's going to, we'll go back and ask those people, were the officers polite? Did they handle it to your liking? Was there any other comments you wish to make? We do that on our own. I didn't feel it's proper for me to go around the school saying, if you had any contact with the SRO, and play that game. So I thought this was an opportunity for us to get engaged on, and again, some of the things where it's SRO or police, again, talking to Mr. Crenshaw, we went through the same thing, is, it's more of an educational thing. They don't realize that that is the police. If somebody calls 911 from this school, her radio's going off, the SRO will be the first one there, obviously with the backup of patrol officers and everybody else is on duty. But she's the initial response. So that's something, I get kids are, because it was almost like 50-50 as far as who they thought should, attend. So, but we did learn one thing, like with the after-school events, they felt more comfortable. It should be like an SRO. We have 2 trained now. I'll be setting a 3rd one that's training this year. And I think, obviously, for the next sports season, we'll probably be looking at, especially the outdoor events, trying to have somebody present for those. I think it's for me, it's part of the community effort to make people aware that we're there, and it's just a safety issue for, some parents start behaving kind of crazy in this day and age with the sporting events, so it's just, a win-win for us to do that, so.
This was anonymous, right?
Yeah.
Anonymous? I think that says a lot there.
Yeah. It does, and it does for now. So this is where we are right now. I think we need to keep the survey, not open but active. I think we need to bring it back to. That's why I'm asking if you have any other questions, suggestions. But I feel like we had a good start, at least.
And we typically, as you know, use our main district-wide safety to kind of review our plans, so this will be a piece of that as well.
Okay.
Do you have anything further in your report?
Just a few things.
Okay, good.
So just a reminder that the ad hoc committee continues their work on the code of conduct. We have a timeline in place, and I was very, very impressed with Mr. Hales and Mr. Kramer's efforts with that particular ad hoc team. I'm really excited for you to see the document that's resulting from their meetings and work with the shared decision-making team. For La Crosse step merger plan, just so you're aware, what we're talking about here is this started sort of spring of 2023, where we put a step process in place. So here we are, spring 24. They opened registration at the youth level for Fonda Fultonville students, boys and girls. Now, spring 20, so we're moving ahead, seeking the board's approval on moving forward with that, so that in spring 2025, we can actually start the modified merger. So not starting that this year, but next year. And then by spring 2026, we're hoping for a merger of JV and varsity, depending on interest. So that's kind of the step plan. And thanks to Mr. Ben Ostrand and Mr. Eric Wilson at Fonda for putting that together. A couple of good things. Last week it was National Breakfast Week. We have a lot of great things going on with our food service program, especially Eric Winnie. I was really intrigued with the breakfast buggy, the grab and go situation. You may have seen the Facebook posts. Reminder that all meals remain free and accessible to students. We have a vending machine in the other room that even allows students to pull lunches out of the vending machine. I think it's pretty cool. Just a reminder, under budget personnel, we saw where we are with the budget presentation now. I want to remind you that when I look at my notes from last March in this report, I wrote verbatim, we're leveraging the federal grants while we have them. So we just have to keep in mind that this is not a surprise that we've run out of this federal grant money. A word that we're in this continuation of probation and tenure granting process. And I'll talk a little bit more in executive session about that. And I think we kind of filled you in on where we were with facilities. So I want to move to others. I want to thank you for helping to revise that school calendar. This is cart before the horse, and I'm going to send this out to all staff tomorrow. Sorry, Nancy, but we have 4 days to get back, and they're going to be March 27th, 28th, April 8th, and May 24th. So hopefully no storms come, but if they do, let's start taking them back in a systematic way. I hope you knew about the Music in Our Schools Month concert. It was just an amazing performance by so many of our students and teachers. Tarzan, the musical, was a really wonderful effort again this year. Odyssey, the mime teams. We have 7 teams advancing to state finals on April 13th. And then that's all I have for the public portion. I have some executive session items too.
Okay, great. I don't have much to share on the board report. I do want to thank Marge for taking the lead on our basket. How's that going? Are we good?
I drafted off last week.
All right, sweet.
It's on their Facebook page.
It's on the Facebook page. Okay, so if you're at the library, check out the basket that our board has put together. And if you haven't made your contribution to Marge's cause here, everybody's good? All right, then that's fine. We're good, thank you. All right, so we'll jump into committee reports. We only really have had one committee meet since the last board meeting. That's the facilities committee. So we met on March 6th, and we hosted representatives from Turner Construction.
That's how they. Let me just watch it, just in case you want.
The leadership.
So like the JTA.
I really apologize.
Yeah.
That's
I-
Okay.
I
I
jumped-
thought you were gonna come on back to it.
It's up to you.
Yeah, okay, I just jumped the gun on that, so just let me finish this and then we'll be back. Okay. All right, so we hosted several people from our construction and design teams. We talk briefly about the capital outlay project for the 24-25 school year that Dr. Crankshaw referenced in his presentation earlier. We had an update on the medium capital project planning. The current status of the SED review and approval is not good. It seems SED is delayed and is likely to push back our schedule considerably, which is forcing us to have to reframe our budget modeling for the project, and thus the consideration of scope alternates that will help us control costs further on down the road. So the timeline for completion, the SED delay could push the approval out to November 2024. Work cannot begin until after the SED approval. This pushes the bid timeframe off typical market rhythms. And based on adjusted start time of December 2024, completion would need to be done by December 25 to stay on target for district financial plan, basically getting the state reimbursement on that outlay. Completion after December 2025 will alter the state aid reimbursement timeline, which will affect district financial planning models. Phasing scopes of work and bidding strategies were reviewed. Turner's working on coordinating construction phasing plan to accomplish the work during the school year with the least amount of operational impact as possible. But the whole point is to try to take advantage of timeframes that they can do work without imposing obstacles to the operations of the facility and still meet the deadline of December 2025. Some new business was reviewed. The propositions for the May 21st ballot, the capital projects and reserve fund creation, seeker resolution is required, and we're expecting that a type 2 action is appropriate, meaning no significant environmental impact. Proposition to create the new $10 million capital reserve and to approve the new small 2 capital project using $5 million from the 23 capital reserve. We will need to add proposition language for the solar EPC capital project should we proceed with including this project on the May ballot along with the seeker resolution. An update on the small capital project 2. We reviewed the preliminary budget and scope of work. The change in the SED timeline is pushing the schedule back to the point where the escalation factors in the project cost model need to be adjusted to keep the project within budget, and as discussed, for some alternates. Turner has their arms around the escalation numbers at this point in time, but they need to continue to manage that expectation moving forward. The solar EPC capital project, if the seeker is an unlisted rather than a type 2, we're not going to have this ready for the May referendum, so there's no need to rush it at this point. There are some concerns about potential wetland impacts that would force that into a unlisted action. The representative from Danforth is supplying additional information on the solar scope of work to our legal counsel, and the decision we made Friday, this past Friday, as to the seeker determination, which will determine readiness for the May referendum. We also reviewed the plan and timeline for the large capital project development and 2025 building condition survey. After meeting with Tetra Tech, we're going to hold off on beginning to plan the large capital project until the fall, so that we can dedicate time and focus in developing the new building condition survey and to expand the document to include considerations and inclusion of learning environments, needs from a more global perspective. And we have time to plan as the referendum is not until fall of 2026. Our next meeting will be June 5th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. at the district office. So any questions on that? Okay. So now I will gladly be quiet and hand it over to Sigrid.
So, good
We are going to present the last of the 3 installments of the JTA mini grant presentation for this year. Just as a reminder, the JTA, the Johnstown Teachers Association, has created this mechanism by which members can access financial support for programs and initiatives that are not currently funded by the district. They really allow educators to expand what they can offer to their students. And we will begin, here we go, by talking about what Mrs. Preston, 3rd grade teacher at Warren Street, has utilized her JTA mini grant funds for. So Mrs. Preston purchased supplies for activity bins for her students to use. The supplies included puzzles and Rubik's cubes and crafting supplies and STEM building supplies, playing cards, a lot of really fun things. So in lieu of the traditional paperwork for their morning work, these activities provide students enrichment in social emotional learning, growth and fine motor skill development, and critical thinking. They also allow students to start their day in a fun, hands-on, creative way that kind of better accommodates the variety of arrival times that she has for her students, and the academic and social emotional levels in her classroom. So far, Mrs. Preston reports the students have really enjoyed the hands-on fun activities. In addition to being put to use as alternative morning work choices, the bins are also utilized as enrichment activities for early finishers, kids who get their work done early. And Mrs. Preston says that she really appreciates JTA's investment in her classroom and her students. Next, we've got 2 mini grants from the physical education department. Oh, the down arrow. Thank you. Okay. This might sound a little bit familiar because for the 2nd year in a row, Mrs. Krempa and Mrs. Pop have been awarded a JTA grant to purchase swimsuits for students who are using the pool at the high school. They received a grant for swimsuits and towels last year as well, but clearly their need continued because the district is once again offering swim physical education to Warren Street students, which has obviously increased the need for some loaner swimsuits. They commented that over the past few years, it's become increasingly apparent there are multiple students and families who can't afford swimsuits or towels. So Mrs. Krempa and Mrs. Pop, they started to notice this trend pre-COVID. They did what they could to accommodate by actually asking staff to donate old swimsuits that they had, and then even supplemented from some of the swimsuits that they had in their own home. But since the reopening of the pool in the spring of 22, they noticed that the need has really increased, they said tenfold. So students really want to participate in the lessons that they offer, but some days there just aren't enough swimsuits to go around. So with the mini grant funds, Mrs. Krempa and Mrs. Pop were able to purchase more swimsuits, mostly in youth sizes, to add to the supply. And they can be borrowed on a daily basis, and the suits and towels are collected each evening and at the end of each period and washed each evening so they're ready to go for the next day. If we move on to Knox, Mrs. Cornell, our physical education teacher at Knox Middle School, was also awarded a grant. She purchased these pop-up bowls, so a lot of fun. Mrs. Cornell says that they've gotten a lot of use out of these pop-up bowls. They've been used for team handball and a variety of holiday games, and she has plans to utilize them for a number of different units this year as the year progresses. The goals, she said, they're really good quality, and they can be used indoors or outdoors, and they even come with storage space to keep them in good condition for years to come. And they've allowed PE teachers to keep more kids active during class time by providing the opportunity to create multiple small games instead of just one large game, while giving students a target to score the goal in. So she thanks the JTA for the mini grant. And finally, Mrs. Weisenhunt, our Knox music teacher, she was also grateful to receive the grant. She used it because she was restarting the Knox chorus. The district restarted the Knox chorus extracurricular group this year. So, however, Mrs. Weisenhunt is taking it and making it her own. She's twisting it a little bit, and she's reforming it to be a show choir. If you're not familiar, a show choir involves dancing and choreography and more performance opportunities. So the focus, she said, is on music that reaches more student interests, such as musical theater and pop music. Her goal for this is to hopefully start up a middle school theater program. She's got lots of goals, this is great. In the future, with a long-term goal of maybe doing a grades 5 through 7 musical. So the mini grant funds were used to purchase music and potential performing opportunities outside of the March and June concerts that she's doing. She is very grateful for the funding so that the students can perform musical theater pieces. As of right now, she said the show choir will be performing Hard Knock Life from Annie and a musical selection from Susan Cole the Musical. So she took the JTA mini grant funds and she's using those to purchase additional pieces that were based on student interest. I think with the other musical, the music that she had before, Rights, I think it's called, came from things that the district had already purchased for the musicals that we used in the high school. So, they meet once a week for grades 5 through 7 that started in January. She's really grateful for the grant. She said she's hoping this funding for the Knox Show Choir will greatly impact the students' lives and encourage lifelong learning and a lifelong appreciation for music. She provided us a little clip of one of their rehearsals. Did you guys read it? Oh, I couldn't get a mouse to pick up. You lost it. Do you want to see it? I don't. Do you see it now?
Up there just by the end. This is
Oh, thank you.
very small.
It's hard to see on this screen.
Down, yeah,
You
you
can
come
see
down.
it, great.
down
I'll
to
be
the-
there.
Whoa, it's really up there.
You see it? If we can't show it tonight, you have this, I believe, in your board doc. So it's really great because the kids are really engaged, and it's neat to see some of the kids who I knew who were a little bit shyer, more on the shy side. There it is. To see them skip ahead a little bit. There we go. As you can see, this is not a traditional choir class. They're sitting up on the bleacher, on the riser. So she's really excited about this. She's one of our new music teachers, and she's breathing a really nice breath of fresh air. As board members, you might be thinking, gee, these things have been funded by the teachers union. Should they be items that have been funded by the district? You know, for example, the district funded a course extracurricular, some music to go with it, or in a similar fashion, if you think back to last month's presentation about the art enrichment club at Knox. You know, we started the enrichment club, but they needed money for supplies. Or the district has a pool with a swim program, but not the swimsuits for kids to utilize it. So, I do want to take that thought that you might be having and kind of funnel it in a little bit different direction. I want to let you know one of the great things about this district is the very consistent and productive dialogue that happens between employees and management. This is an example of that really coming to a real positive end. So through one of our regularly scheduled liaison meetings with Dr. Crankshaw and Mr. Coster, we were able to determine the district actually wants to and plans to fund these necessary pieces of the students' educational programs. So our students will have what they need without having to rely on the grants from the teachers union going forward. So we're really grateful for the dialogue and the swift decision making from Dr. Crankshaw and from Ms. Coster. So thank you for letting us present this.
Thank you. All right, we have a couple bits of correspondence. The first being the HFM annual meeting invitation. The meeting will be held Wednesday, April 10th, 2024, at the 6 o'clock, followed by a dinner at 6:45. It'll be prepared and served by the culinary arts students under the supervision of Mr. Todd Harper, who is the culinary arts instructor. So if you have any interest, please let Lorena know, and she can get you registered for the event. Next, we have a letter from Johnstown Youth Lacrosse. I'll read it out loud here. On the agenda for this evening's board meeting is the motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the interscholastic athletic mergers between the Greater Johnstown School District and Fultonville Central School District for boys and girls modified lacrosse 2024-25 school year. On behalf of myself and our board of directors, I am writing this letter to express our support for this recommendation. In our program, the enrollment of children from Fonda has nearly doubled from last year to this year. We believe that this is in anticipation of these kids having the opportunity to continue to play beyond 6th grade. We are hopeful that these numbers will continue to grow next year at the modified level, and warrant future consideration of the merger on the varsity JV level. As a graduate of Johnstown High School and a parent of children in the district, one of the things that sets our school apart is the variety of sports opportunities for our children compared to similar sized schools. Because we offer so many opportunities compared to similar sized schools, ensuring that we have enough participants to field teams for these programs is imperative. Working with Fonda has proven successful in allowing us to continue programs such as wrestling and swimming, and we believe it will help to continue to grow our numbers for lacrosse and allow the school to continue to provide opportunities for our children to compete beyond what is typically expected. As a parent of children in the program, I am hopeful that you will support this proposal and continue the growth of one of the fastest growing sports in the country. Thank you for your time, consideration, and all your efforts on behalf of our children. Very truly yours, Corey Delmata, President, Johnstown Youth Lacrosse. So there you have it. Vote of confidence. Okay, moving on, we have our consent agenda. In an effort to expedite the business of the Board of Education, but in no way meant to diminish the importance of each item, a consent agenda may be used for the items in this section. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any one board member. Items not removed will be adopted by general consent without debate. Any removed items may be taken up either immediately after the consent agenda or placed later on the agenda at the discretion of the board. So we have consent action business, which includes letters A, prior board meeting minutes, B, warrants for January 2024, C, treasurer's report for January 2024, D, general fund budget modification, a donation by the Johnstown Music Support Group. That includes number 7, consent action personnel, which includes abolishments, leaves of absence, resignations, miscellaneous creations, adjustments, and appointments. And it includes number 8, consent action for CSE, CPSE, and 504 committee placements, and the approval of said committee minutes. So with all those being involved with the consent agenda, does anybody wish to remove any item from that agenda? Okay, hearing none, I look for a motion to accept. Art, second. Joel, any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Okay, we are unanimous. Moving on to action items for business. So we've got several items here. Give me a quick perusal. I think I'm going to go through these individually. So the first item is a motion. I'm looking for a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to adopt the following revised policies effective March 14, 2024. Those include revised policy 6212.1, incidental teaching, revised policy 6510, health and dental insurance, and revised policy 7530, child abuse and maltreatment. Motion to accept. Art, second. Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Next item is the amended intermunicipal agreement for personnel share. This is a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve an intermunicipal agreement for personnel share amendment between the Greater Johnstown School District and the Wheelerville Union Free School District, and authorizing the superintendent to execute said amended agreement. Can I get a motion? Jen, second? Joelle? Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Next, we have the interscholastic athletic mergers with Wheelerville. This is for the spring of 2024. Looking for a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the interscholastic athletic mergers between the Greater Johnstown School District and Wheelerville Union Free School District for the following spring sports, effective for the 2023-24 school year. Boys and girls modified track and field, boys modified lacrosse, modified baseball, modified softball, and girls modified lacrosse. Can I get a motion? Art, second. Marge? Any discussion?
It's a good idea, because it doesn't have program.
True.
We've been doing this. It's just that there's an informed funding process.
Okay.
It has to do with the governing sports people.
Section 2.
Section 2, there you go. They've created a little bit. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, unanimous, thank you. Next, we have the interscholastic athletic mergers with Wheelerville for fall of 2024. This is a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the interscholastic athletic mergers between the Greater Johnstown School District and Wheelerville Union Free School District for the following fall sports effective for the 2024-25 school year, specifically modified football. I get a motion. Marge, second? Jen? Any discussion?
Can I just ask one other question? Why, I know there's a reason for this, because we've talked about this forever, but why do we not approve it for other modified level sports? Soccer, et cetera, et cetera. There's a reason.
The due date for mergers for the fall for football is prior to the fall for the rest of the sports. So the due date for the rest of the fall sports will be actually April 1st. So Mrs. Donahue and I will work on those forms to get those approved for it. So that's why, because the state, or the section of the state has dates.
Thank you.
Well, we're following that one. You'll expect to see.
Yeah. Good.
Okay. Did we vote?
Thank you.
No.
It's been a long day. Okay, so any further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Next, we have the interscholastic athletic merger with Fun and Foldsville for the spring of 2025. Looking for a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the interscholastic athletic mergers between the Greater Johnstown School District and Fun and Foldsville Central School District for the following spring sports, effective for the 2024-25 school year. They include boys modified lacrosse and girls modified lacrosse. So can I have a motion? Art? Can I get a second? Joelle? Any discussion?
I had quite a lengthy discussion today with Mr. Delmar on the sport.
Okay. Okay.
My only question is, so the premise is going forward after 24-25, other teams will be included, for example, JV and varsity. Levels, right?
Same program.
Same,
they're
yeah.
leveling up.
But as we go forward with the merger.
This is the tricky part, because if we all get hit by a Mack truck, we don't have a process necessarily in place that's been approved. So right now, it's called the step merger process. So right now, for next year, it's modified, and year following the JV and varsity, but it'll be dependent upon interest. But we all have to remember that, and I think it'll come the request will come next year.
Right.
You know.
Because I know that we've talked about this. There've been parents who requested us to merge with Fonda.
Mr. Chacho was afraid, since he's retiring this year, that this would get lost. So he's
Okay.
at least glad that we started with modified.
Okay.
And we just need to keep this in our forefront of our memory, that the merger process continues. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those,
I was just gonna say, I'm glad to see it going forward. I think it's been a long time coming.
I know it hasn't happened quite as fast as some would have liked, but something's better than nothing.
Exactly.
So,
It's good to see now.
yeah. Okay, so I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, we are unanimous. Congratulations, guys. Okay, next we have the secret resolution for small 2 capital project. So this is a motion to accept the resolution set forth as follows. Whereas the Board of Education of the Greater Johnstown School District is a local agency pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, ECL Section 8-0101, and implementing regulations 6 NYCRR Part 617. And whereas the board is considering undertaking a capital improvement project consisting of renovations and improvements at various schools located in the school district as set forth below. That includes Johnstown High School involving various general construction, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing replacement or upgrades to internal existing space, structure, or systems, none of which involves the construction of additions or new space, and all of which solely affects existing space, systems, or structures such as the replacement of internal existing areas, including but not limited to reconfiguration of non-educational spaces, replacement to or upgrade of existing plumbing, replace or upgrade existing HVAC systems and controls, replace or upgrade existing electrical systems, and Pleasant Avenue Elementary School involving various general construction, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing replacement or upgrades to internal existing space, structure, or systems, none of which involves the construction of additions or new space, and all of which solely affects existing space, systems, or structures, such as the replacement of internal existing areas, including but not limited to addition of a serving line and equipment in the kitchen, pavement, and replacement of existing flooring, replacement or upgrade of existing plumbing, replace or upgrade existing HVAC systems and controls, replace or upgrade existing electrical. And considering how long this is, Knox Middle School and Warren Street Elementary School are very similar in their scope, details of which are provided in the resolution. Whereas the board wishes to fully comply with its obligations under SECRA and regulations thereunder with respect to the proposed action. And whereas the board has consulted with its architects and engineers with respect to the potential for environmental impact resulting from the proposed action. Whereas the above school buildings are separated geographically with no environmental impacts between them for SECRA determination purposes, and with the only connection being the entire project is subject to a single funding source and vote by the residents of the school district. Therefore, the board will consider this as one single resolution to negate any perception of segmentation. And whereas the board has reviewed the proposed action with respect to the type 2 criteria set forth in the SECRA Regulation 6 NYCRR Part 617.5 and has determined that the proposed action is type 2 action pursuant to section 617.5C1, 2, and or 10 of the SECRA regulations. And whereas the board has carefully considered the nature and scope of the proposed action, and whereas upon review of the foregoing, the board makes the following determinations. The proposed action involves a project as described previously. The proposed project represents maintenance or repair involving no substantial changes in the existing facility or structure within the meaning of the regulations, and or alternatively the replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of a structure or facility in kind within the meaning of the regulations, and/or alternately a routine activity of an educational institution, including expansion of existing facilities by less than 10,000 square feet of gross floor area within the meaning of the regulations. The proposed action will in no case have a significant adverse impact on the environment based on the criteria contained in the regulations and is not otherwise a type 1 action as defined by the regulations. The proposed action is a type 2 action within the meaning of the regulations, therefore not subject to review under seeker and the regulations thereunder. Now therefore be resolved that the board finds and concludes that the proposed action is a type 2 action within the meaning of the regulations and therefore is not subject to review under seeker and the regulations thereunder. That was enough. So there you have it. So I'm looking for a motion to accept the resolution as read. Marge, second. Jen, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, very good. Sorry to push you all. So next we have a motion to, well, this is a resolution dated March 14th of the Board of Education authorizing propositions to be presented to the voters at the annual district meeting. So I'm looking for a motion to adopt the resolution as set forth below. Be it resolved by the Board of Education of the City School District of the City of Johnstown that the following propositions be presented to the voters at the annual meeting of such voters to be held on Tuesday, March 21st, 2024. Proposition 1, shall the Board of Education of the City School District of the City of Johnstown be authorized to establish a capital reserve fund pursuant to Section 3651 of the New York State Education Law in an amount not to exceed $10 million with a probable term of 10 years for the purpose of financing the acquisition of sites, construction of and general improvement, reconstruction, renovations, and additions to the district's buildings, facilities, and sites, and the acquisition of original furnishings, equipment, machinery, and other apparatus required for the purpose of which such buildings, facilities, and sites are to be used, with such 2024 capital reserve fund being funded from unappropriated fund balance, future budget surpluses, and other legally available sources. Proposition number 2, shall the Board of Education of the City School District of the City of Johnstown be authorized to reconstruct, renovate, and improve various district buildings, facilities, and sites, and acquire additional original furnishing, equipment, machinery, or apparatus required for the purpose of, for which such buildings, facilities, and sites are to be used at a maximum aggregate cost of $5 million, and to expend $5 million from the 2023 Capital Reserve Fund to finance the cost for such project. Be it further resolved that the district clerk is hereby directed to include notice of such propositions in the notice of the annual meeting. Be it further resolved that this resolution takes effect immediately upon its adoption. Can I get a motion to accept the resolution as read? Art, second. Joelle, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, so that's unanimous. Sorry, again, I apologize. All right, next up we have action items for personnel. I am looking for a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to amend the title of Physical Education and Health and Athletics and Extracurricular Programs Director to Director of Student Engagement, Athletic Director, effective July 1st, 2024. Can I get a motion? Jen, second. Art, any discussion? I think we'll all agree that it'll save us a lot of time. I'll try to refer to this position. Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. Next up, this is the probationary appointment of Robert Kramer, Director of Student Engagement, Athletic Director. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education of the Greater Johnstown School District hereby appoints, this is a motion. I am looking for a motion to accept this. So upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education of the Greater Johnstown School District hereby appoints Robert Kramer to a 3-year probationary appointment as Director of Student Engagement, Athletic Director, in the Director of Student Engagement, Athletic Director, tenure area, a 12-month position at an annual salary commensurate with Mr. Kramer's present salary and its trajectory as provided for in the current JAA salary schedule effective July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2028, pursuant to the contractual agreement between the Johnstown Administrators Association and the Greater Johnstown School District. So, can I get a motion to accept the recommendation? Art, second? Jen, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Kramer. Thank you for your continued service to the district. All right, next up, we have a probationary appointment of Peter Cittadino, the school media specialist. This is upon the recommendation of the superintendent. The Board of Education of the Greater Johnstown School District hereby appoints Peter Cittadino to a 4-year probationary appointment as a school media specialist in the school media specialist tenure area, commencing retroactive to August 29, 2023, and August 28, 2027, contingent upon him meeting the requirements of Education Law 3012-D. Mr. Cittadino holds initial certification in library media specialist. Salary will be at step C1, prorated from February 1st, 2024. This resolution shall supersede the resolutions of August 17, 2023 and January 18, 2024, appointing Mr. Cittadino as an extended leave substitute library media specialist. So, can I have a motion to accept the recommendation from the superintendent? Marge, second. Right, Jen? Okay, any discussion?
Is this the creation of a new position?
No, it's an existing position. We hired Mr. Cittadino on an extended leave because he hadn't yet been certified. Now he's certified, so we're in the probationary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, discussion?
There's no change in salary, just the status.
Okay, all those in favor? Very unanimous. Thank you. All right, next up is continuation of policy manual audit, section 8000. You can see there in the agenda the sections that are included in this review period. Again, these are for us to be reviewing, and you know. I'm sorry. Okay, Dr. Crankshaw would like to address the issue.
David and I talked about these policies. When we review these, like the 8,000s, next time we do 9,000, just as an example, I think it's really important that we actually look at them, we actually read them. And so what I've started to do is take the policies. I've taken the 8,000. Lorena has done a nice job of going back to legal at Erie Lugosi's, who's our service provider. And we have looked at each of these policies and we'll make some recommendations for first readings, any revisions starting next month in these 8,000s. And mostly this has to do with curriculum construction. It's near and dear to my heart, so I really wanted to start with the 8,000s. But I think the only comment I would make is that 8110, as an example, talks about curriculum development, resources, and evaluation. So we spent a little bit more time on this, and the recommendations I'm going to make have to do with imparting some of the terminology we've been spending a lot of time on in these policies, which are now absent. For example, guaranteed vital curriculum and comprehensive instructional plans and that sort of thing. Other than that, we have some policies that are redundant, should be abolished perhaps, and then some need to be changed. So you'll see the 8,000s coming your way in advance of, I think, the next meeting. But rest assured that we've taken a good look at them, and we'll also take a look at them in committee meetings as well.
Do we have the policies on board docs yet?
You do actually have access to them. If you want to just look further down, you should under, where is it? Under administrative content, you see the policy manual audit process.
Yeah.
So we have an audit process in place already, and you want to take a look at that because there's a timeline there. That's something Lorena keeps, and she keeps it pretty well, and we are on target. We should, by the end of this year, have a full review of our policy manual. but I think it's also time to start taking a closer look at the policies. And as far as the policies, if you go up to the right-hand side, top right corner of the Word docs, it should say policies there. And there you're gonna see our policies. And they have been entered by Erie One Bossies and the Marina. It's taking careful steps to make sure they're all there.
So these are the current policies, right? Any changes we would see?
I can see, I'm not sure if you guys can, and my battery's dead right now. On 9, I can see on policies it says active, draft, and retired. So
Yes.
you can see all of those. So draft are things that are kind of in progress with Erie One, and that we're still working on, that will be presented to you at some time.
Okay. It's good, we're in good shape, but the 8,000s, they're being carefully looked at in advance.
Okay, very good. So next up, upcoming meetings and events. April 10th, we have the HFM BOCES annual meeting at 6 p.m. at the BOCES facility. April 17th, we have the Audit Budget and Finance Committee at 6:30 p.m. at the district office. April 17th, the Personnel Committee at 7:30 p.m. in the district office. And April 24th will be the business meeting and budget discussion, 6 p.m. in the JHS Small Cafe, right where we are right now. Next up, we have a possible executive session. I'm looking for a motion to enter into executive session and a closed session exempt from the open meetings law at 6:26 p.m. for the following purpose. I'm sorry, 7:26 p.m. My apologies. Did I mention it's been a long?
Yes, you did.
We might take a sentence this week, it's okay, last week it was.
So for the following purposes, discussing the employment history of a particular corporation, discussing collective negotiations pertaining to JTA, COA union, CSEA, pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, and discussing the sale or lease of a particular parcel of land, disclosure of which could affect the value of the property. Closed session exempt from the open meetings law includes seeking legal advice from our attorney, which is made privileged by law. So can I get a motion? Art, second. Joanne? All in favor? Thank you. We are now in executive session. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And